Okay, so we continue with our assignment guideline recordings, assignment guideline overview for ISCPDI. ISCPDI. I'm continuing with task 1, question 3. All right. So I hope you get the chance to look at question 1, task 1, question 1 and 2. I hope you've listened to my recording. So now we're going to look at task 1, question number 3. All right, so let me read. In proposing the strategy, explain any two supply chain network configurations which can be explored and evaluated. Which can be explored and evaluate the relevance of these models to the chosen organization. All right. So in proposing the strategy, you should probably read in proposing a strategy. So here's the thing. Question 3 is somewhat connected to question 2. So remember, in question 2, you give a brief insight of the challenges the company would have been facing, right? Now you're going to address this in question number 3, all right? So in proposing a strategy, explain any two supply network configurations or supply chain network configurations which can be explored, which can be explored, and evaluate its relevance, evaluate their relevance, all right? All right, for the chosen company. All right, same company, right? So just an intro. Let me start with my first note. For some companies, for some firms, the design of the supply chain network or supply network or supply chain would have been a major contributor towards many operations and supply chain related issues, of that company, right? And that is a reality. We see companies struggle with that, all right? I mentioned Nestle, all right, Starbucks. There are many companies, they struggle their supply chain network because they're global organizations, all right? That brings a level of exposure or vulnerability to their supply chains, all right? We're not talking about a small grocer around the corner. We're talking about very large, influential organizations with distribution hubs globally, organizations with retailers globally, organizations with assembly hubs globally, right? With assembly and production plants globally. We're talking about companies like Toyota, all right? Companies like Ford, right? These large organizations, all right? So anyway, first thing you should do is recap the issues facing the organization. So you can start with a recapping the challenges that the organization would have faced, whether it be Lego, IKEA, etc. All right. Then you attempt to outline a range of supply chain strategies you might propose to address these issues. All right. I'm going to come back to that. Now, these strategies should include, must include a change of the current network design. So let me pause a bit. Now, let's say I propose a strategy like outsourcing. So let's say for some reason, company A had issues with their production plant, maybe labor challenges, and they would have decided to outsource that function, all right, to a third-party provider, right, somewhere in, I don't know, could be anywhere, in Alaska, you name it, anywhere. That would also, or is likely to, lead to the reconfiguration of their supply chain. Because if I'm now outsourcing a function, and for those of you who may have forgotten what outsourcing is taking partially or fully an internal function, dissolving that function and giving it to a third-party provider to perform. All right. So let's say housekeeping, making this simple. All right, housekeeping. Many companies would have outsourced housekeeping and even IT. All right, to focus more on their core business, right? So they would have given it to a third-party provider to perform that or to perform those services. But anyway, coming back to what we were talking about, if a chocolate company decides to outsource packaging, all right, let's say they give packaging to a third-party provider somewhere in New Zealand or in Trinidad or wherever, somewhere, the supply chain network will not look the same. All right, that would likely be an add-on to their supply chain network, because that third-party provider will have to supply them with the packaging material, and the packaging material may come from abroad. Now, it might be within the same continent or within the same country. That is quite possible, and you will see some reconfiguration there as well, even if it's from the same country, because that's another tentacle you need to manage, another tentacle you need to be looking at, right? Before packaging was done internally, now it's done externally. All right, so that is one example. Now, these strategies must include a change of the current network. All right, so as you mentioned the strategies, I just gave outsourcing as an example. As you mentioned the strategies, bear in mind that the supply chain network will require some adjustment, right? And there are many strategies. You're probably asking, well, what other strategies? There are so many supply chain strategies. Without talking about the theoretical ones, one supply chain strategy for me, for a company, considering the circumstances we had in 2020, one strategy which might be popular for all of you would be to have an alternative source or multiple sources. Many organizations are now rethinking and adding some alternative sources, even multiple sources. All right, why? You know, the eggs in one basket scenario. All right, so the situation we were faced with last year, 2020, and the situation that we are still in currently in 2021, would have seen companies struggle, right? Companies who had one main source of supply struggled. So, right, so a strategy we're seeing emerging here, right, we see emerging all over, would be dual sourcing or multiple sourcing, or having several sources for your supply, right? That can be a strategy. That could be a supply chain strategy. Yes, it is. And there are other supply chain strategies. I don't think I may want to talk about them now, but you can come up with anyone. All right. Okay, let me see if I could add one more. A supply chain strategy might involve a new approach whereby you have whereby a vendor or a supplier is now managing your inventory. So let's say you're running an operation in California. You're assembling bicycles, and you would have small parts like screws and all those small parts, maybe rivets, I'm not sure, right? Then you may have a supplier, right, managing your inventory of those small parts. This supplier might be located in another state, might be located in another region within the same country. Again, that requires some adjustment of your supply chain network. You with me on that? Think about it. So anyway, these strategies must include a change of the current network design, with 2 designs to be proposed. Now, a student did ask me if we need to do 3. In other words, do we need to showcase the existing design and then create 2 more? No. You don't need to overwork yourself. Just propose 2 design models, right? So if you want, you can showcase the existing one, but propose 2. It's all on you, right? Just give a sketch, right? Give a sketch of the new configuration, right? That you think will be required based on your supply chain strategy that you would have discussed, right? So there should be a relationship there, right, between whatever strategy you apply and some adjustment of your supply chain network. All right, you mean that? Even a change in your, let's say a supply chain challenge might be quality issues, and because of the quality issues, you would have switched supplier. All right, because a particular supplier in a particular region could supply you with a particular standard. Then you're looking at a change there again, right? So anyway, for example, a network design with multiple supplier tiers and many distribution hubs might be a recipe for delays and increased logistics, right? So it is best to draw them, establishing arguments for its benefit. So yes, establish arguments for its benefit and its relevance to your company. So you're going to sell it. You know, why you propose this model, right? Why is it, you know, why you propose this model? All right. So for its benefits and relevance to the firm's current challenge or position. For example, I'm repeating, a network design with multiple supplier tiers and many distribution hubs might be a recipe for delays and increased logistics. So that is just there's another side of looking at it too. So you know, I'll give an example, and I'll tell you what that example is about. Your supply chain network may see a shrinking of your of that particular network. That's another thing, right? Because in some organizations, when they look at their supply chain network, it might appear to be too complex, very difficult to manage, all right? Right? And it may bring about some bureaucracy, right? So you may downsize the current network for economic reasons too. There are plants that close down all over the world, right? Yeah. So companies are now consolidating, right? So that could, you know, that your supply chain network may not be extended, but it might be reduced, right, to something smaller, all right? So this company strategy, supply chain strategy might be to reduce their supply chain base to reduce costs. And this will lead to a reduction of their supply chain network in terms of its size, right? All right. And in terms of the argument for that, a very complex supply chain network could be difficult to manage. You may have many delays and so on, right? So that is what that example is about. So I hope you're clear on that. All right, so let me just go down a bit. Move the slides. Right, so I have a last note there. So try to understand the current network design and attempt to redo its shape, right? And you're redoing it not because you want to redo it, of course. You're redoing it based on the challenges you would have seen, and as well based on the recommendations you would have put in place, right? So the challenges and the supply chain strategies you would have considered must and should influence your supply chain network design. All right, I hope you got that. Testing 1 2 3, testing 1 2 3. Thank you.